Hi guys, thanks for joining me once again for this week's weekly reflection. So we're in the first week of Advent, and this week I was listening, as I often do, to the Australian metalcore band Parkway Drive. And in one of their songs, they sing the line, "Hope for the hopeless, a light in the darkness." Every week in Advent has a different theme, and this week's theme is hope. We're called to reflect on our own hopes, but also to remember the hopes of the people of God. We remember that for generations throughout all of the Old Testament, the people of God were waiting, hoping for a Messiah, someone who would come and save them, someone who would come and reveal the power of God to the world. They had had many great leaders, kings, prophets, preachers, but none of them had been the Messiah they were hoping and waiting for. And then along came Jesus as an answer to that hope. God made man. Now, he might not have been the great warrior king they were hoping for, but he was an answer to their hopes, dreams, and prayers. And we see that through his life, through the teachings of him, through his miracles, and through the way that he saved humanity with his passion, death, and resurrection. Their hope was answered in Jesus. But today, we're called also to place our hope in Jesus and in that second coming, when Jesus will come back and we will all be united with God for eternity in heaven. In fact, we've been hoping for that since Jesus returned to heaven. We don't know when that's going to come or when that moment will be, but our hope is that it will be triumphant and joyful. This year has been a challenging year. This year has been one full of difficulty and upset and loss and change, and all of those things are difficult. And I've really felt that this year, the challenges that life has thrown at us. But we have to continue to place our hope in God, because we know that at some point God will save us and that God is always the answer to those hopes and dreams. And just this week, we've had the great news that we're able to go back to Mass. And we're able to publicly worship together. And that's a really exciting thing and an answer to a lot of people's hopes and prayers. But we've also had the really wonderful and exciting vaccine news. And for me, that vaccine news reminded me of that song lyric, but also of the idea of the Advent candle. Because to me, that vaccine is a symbol of hope in the darkness. And we are reminded when we light the Advent candle that the light is a source of hope and strength in the darkness. For many people, a candle or a light of that sort of thing is a real source of hope. Maybe on a long journey, seeing a light in the distance as a sign of the end of that journey. But, for us, when we light that Advent candle, that first candle, we're called to remember that even in the darkest moments of life, that God is there as our hope. And he's given us that with the vaccine. Just like many years ago, in a much greater and more important way, he gave us that hope through Jesus and through the salvation that he brings to the world. When we turn to the Bible, we see loads of examples of people hoping and people having their hopes answered by God. But one part that I've really enjoyed this week is in St. Paul's letter to the Hebrews. He says, "Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess. For he who promised is faithful." St. Paul is reminding us to stay hopeful and to place our hope and our trust in God, because the one who has promised to us, God, is faithful and he will not let us down. God will always be there to provide an answer to our hopes. We might not always recognize them, and Advent is a really good time to think and reflect on how we recognize the presence of God in our own lives. But God will always provide us an answer. God will always be there with an opportunity for us to recognize his presence and to recognize how he is answering the things that we are hoping for. So I just want to invite you to spend a few moments thinking about the things that you're hoping for. Maybe some things you're looking forward to as we start to emerge from this pandemic. Maybe they're much longer term hopes and dreams. But think about those and then place them in God's hands and trust that he will reward your hope because he is truly faithful to you. So as I think again about that song lyric at the start, I'm reminded that really Jesus is a hope for the hopeless. Jesus really is a light in the darkness. And this week, I want you to remember that. And even when it's difficult, even when things are hard or tough or you're facing challenges, remember always that Jesus is there as something for us to cling to, as a real source of hope and an answer to our prayers. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you've had some time to reflect and to think. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Goodbye.